Hello, and welcome to Senior Connections. This is our monthly look at all things related to older adults, their caregivers, and those who love them. We are here to try to help you navigate what can be a confusing, information-filled world of services and programs for older adults. And so we like to address a different topic every month. It's been a couple of months since we've been here due to the pandemic. So I'm very excited today to have my coworker, Virginia Vasquez, and we're going to talk about caregiving programs. And you may remember Virginia was on the show in December. Yep. So since then we did a January show, a February show, a March show, and then COVID came. And so we haven't been around for a couple of months, so we're very happy to be here and to start talking again. And so it seems very appropriate that we talk about caregiver issues this month because with everybody being in this stay-home order that's only just recently been modified, things have changed a lot. So this is a really great time for us to be able to get together and talk. So welcome back, Virginia.
Hi, thank you, Lisa.
Happy to have you here. So when Virginia was here in December, she was really pretty new to this role as a caregiver support specialist. Is that your role? That just started in the fall.
Yes, it started in a year.
But you're not new to Senior Resources. So tell our viewers real briefly, a little bit about what you did before this role and why it was a natural fit for you.
Okay, so I started in Senior Resources 6 years ago, and my job was to support coordinator, so I was putting services in homes. And it's there where I realized the need of a caregiver. The caregivers are the person who are all day long next to the loved one, and that loved one requires a lot of help. So the caregiver is the person who is always overwhelmed, always, is in every case. So I realized that I need to do something else because they needed help. And that's why, after conversations with supervisors and managers, we decided that I could handle a group for caregivers. And it's been 2 years now that I have that group. So people who started 2 years ago were 4 of them, and today coming to the group we have around 20.
Wow.
And they're constant. Sometimes new ones are coming for the first 3 group days, Fridays when we meet, and they find that the other ones are helping them so much with tips that they're bringing more people. So friends and other caregivers, and I am very, very glad to have them because they are finding inside the group the answers they don't have at home. So it's great.
Well, I'm excited to talk a lot more about that because I was, I guess, a couple years ago when you were starting it, came to one of your groups. But we'll share a few statistics first just to give an idea in our nation what this is like. Because every situation obviously is different, they're very personal, but a 2015 report from AARP estimated about a little over 34 million Americans provided unpaid care to an adult age 50 or over. In the prior year, and the majority, or 60%, are female, and about 85% of them are caring for a relative, almost half for a parent or a parent-in-law. 1 in 10 of them cares for a spouse, and nearly this is kind of astonishing to me still, about 10% of those caregivers are 75 or older themselves. But almost as interesting to me is about 25% of them are millennials, so we've got a lot of older caregivers, but we've got younger ones that maybe are helping with grandpa or grandma. And most caregivers are women, as we said, and over 60% of them are still employed, full or part-time. So that, as you said, is a lot of stress. Even if you're not doing it full-time and you've got supports coming in, somebody still coordinates that, somebody's still communicating with a supports coordinator. So as you said, you've grown your support group tremendously from 4 to over 20. And you were doing really well with that and doing it every week. And I know you were, even though we're focusing on Muskegon for this show, you grew it to Oceana and into Ottawa County, into southern Ottawa. You were just getting started. And then COVID-19 came.
The same day.
Exactly. So right at the time you were going to go to Georgetown Township to do something, all heck broke loose. So but I know you, and you, as all of us at Senior Resources have continued to work remotely, you've done the same thing. So talk to us a little bit about how things have changed. What are you doing differently?
It was challenging because from being with them, I had to start talking over the phone with each one. And the good thing was that from other groups, let me say, from other my coworkers that are coordinating other services, they send me people who were caregiving for the first time inside the house without going anywhere, and they found out themselves stuck in something that, what am I going to do now? So I've been receiving those people over the phone and helping them as much as I could, talking to them, but most of it listening to them. They need to talk, they need to express the feelings because it's something new.
So many of them weren't coming to your group because maybe they had somebody going to an adult care program or they had help coming in.
Exactly.
But then when a lot of service, because of course our older adults are the most vulnerable population and we are the most concerned, a lot of people stopped having the services come in unless they were life-sustaining, right?
Yes.
And so somebody who would have come in and done laundry or homemaking services, we pulled back out of those because they weren't
Not
life-sustaining.
anymore. So now the caregiver is working at home sometimes, or not working, but doing all what the loved one needs that she or he was not doing before. So overwhelmed is the word again. They don't know. They asking sometimes, what am I doing? What this is happening?
And then you've got these new connections with people you haven't even had the privilege of meeting
No,
in person.
I didn't
So you're
know them.
just doing them on the phone. You've never talked to them before, likely.
No, we introduced over the phone, and I don't know why, but they got engaged very quickly, and I had the satisfaction of saying that they said they were waiting for my call every week.
Nice.
And that's what I was doing every single week from these
How many
3
people
months.
were you calling?
45
Every week.
every week.
Wow. So it's not just our Muskegon people, but you've got
Ah,
the people
yep.
you had in Oceana and then these new people as well.
Yes, I have 2 new ones from Zealand and from Hart in Muskegon, and everybody
Because
around.
that's the group that's been going on for a couple of years. So, wow, big changes.
Yeah, big changes, challenging for me too.
Right, on both ends. So you've got people who've never had to deal with all this before, calling somebody they've never met before.
Exactly.
And I'm sure very grateful just to have somebody who listens, who's got the experience to be able to
Listen
help
is
them.
the main thing, because nobody can understand how a caregiver can suffer being taking care of the loved one every single hour of the day. So when you listen and they cry and they tell you and they ask what is happening, what should I do, what I change, I got the answers.
Right.
I got the answers that they can hang up the phone and say, wow, now they told me that.
Right. Or even just that they've got somebody who will listen and not, and there's a lot of guilt with caregiving, right?
Absolutely.
A lot. And so you're not making them feel guilty. So sometimes
Nope.
it's like going to therapy. They've got somebody that they're
Oh, yeah.
comfortable with venting, that understands it and isn't going to judge them.
I told
which is the same thing with
my
the group.
coworkers I became a psychiatrist with any diploma. I did.
So we'll talk a little, let's just go ahead and talk about your exciting news from your caregiver support group that just happened last Friday. So as you said, the Muskegon group would meet at Tanglewood Park on Fridays starting at
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock until about 2:30.
2:30.
And so roughly you've got 20 people coming fairly regularly.
yes, more or
So
less.
of course in March, that all stopped. Came to a screeching halt pretty quickly.
Yes.
And so you were making the phone calls. But what happened last week?
Last week on Friday, I got the authorization to invite all of them to a park. So we get together in a park with our masks, own chairs, and own drinks. And it was so amazing seeing the eyes, the faces, checking on them, and you are awesome, you are okay, you are fine. I was so excited meeting them, and they were more than me. So we had such a good group that day. with some kind of things that happen around. That
So you've got to tell those little stories. So you were in Roosevelt Park,
Yes.
at the park there.
No, it was Ross Park.
Oh, Ross Park, sorry, wrong one. You were at Ross Park planning to be outside. And you
Yes.
went, and I just heard this today, you went and measured 6 feet apart because the governor
Absolutely.
said just recently, you can be outside, you can have groups of up to 100 outside, still do social distancing, so we're following all that. So you go ahead of them. And you measure it all out.
I wanted to be under the rules, and I was measuring seats. Here, you're here, you're here, you're there. And we were on the grass, but suddenly the sprinklers come out. So there was water all over. We didn't know what to do.
And of course, then you're in a group where some of them are probably using walkers or even wheelchairs, and you've
Yep.
got to try to help.
I saw a walker on the head. I saw somebody in a wheelchair that were running. Somebody was pushing. Everything. We were laughing so much, so much. Thank God it wasn't cold.
Right, right.
But it was later when we were all wet. So it was funny, but they decided they were coming again.
Okay. So this is something you're going to start again?
Yes, we're going to do it every Friday as far as we cannot go into the office. And we'll see when we're coming back to what we were.
So it'll be Fridays at 1 o'clock?
Fridays at 1
Is it going
o'clock.
to remain at Ross Park?
At Ross
Have
Park.
you talked to them about the sprinklers, though, to see if they could change that
I
schedule?
called the city of Norton Shores, and they didn't have a schedule, but they told me that every day during the week they turn it on.
Okay.
Not on weekends because people used to go.
Right.
And I said, well, people used to go now. So something has to be done at 1 o'clock on Fridays. She was laughing, but we'll see what happens. But now I know where to sit.
Right. Exactly.
Now I
So,
know.
well, that's wonderful. I'm curious, did any of your new people you talked to on the phone come to that group?
Yes.
And they were accepted in?
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about that, because certainly a lot of friendships have developed, and I know from here, and it could, I would imagine, be a little bit challenging for someone new to come in there, a little scary.
It is.
I know somebody who did that a few years
And it
ago.
was.
It's a little intimidating.
And it was for 2 hours. For 1 hour. The second hour, she was talking to everybody. Because once you get comfortable in the group, once that you hear the other ones, you ask yourself, well, they're having my same problems. So why not to tell mine?
Right.
So the first hour, that lady was very quiet. The second hour was
And
talking.
that's probably, my guess is that's true of most people who come
Yep,
to a group. at
it's always
first.
happening.
Because somebody's always
And
coming.
I am not pushing anybody. You talk when you want and you say what you want.
Well, so let's talk about that, what a typical group is like. So it's a support group. Sometimes I know you've had speakers come in and do a different topic.
I do, because questions are coming up, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse. So I can study how to help them with different situations, but for those things that they ask, I have to ask someone to come.
So you've had a geriatrician come in.
I did.
know I've come in and talked about things on the website, or you've had somebody come in and talk about advanced directives and the importance of those, all kinds of topics.
And I got a nurse coming to talk about specific diseases or reactions, or what to expect.
So you kind of listen to what they're looking for information for and then
Exactly.
schedule
I ask
somebody.
them to bring the questions they have. If I cannot answer, I have the person who can do it.
Okay. So out of the hour and a half that it normally is, about a half an hour that is informational from an
The
expert.
the first half hour I take it to give them information. When I have something new about the VA, new services, I'll bring them in paper so they can take them home. If there is an event around the area, I'll bring them in paper so they can go. Distraction, I bring distraction for them so they don't know where to go when they are stuck with something. So it is interesting. And then after that half hour, we are all of us alone, because they don't want anybody strange to be there listening to their problems. It's very difficult when somebody is new. So what they learn is they try to bring inside the conversation the new one first thing. When the new one is talking, they start talking again.
Okay.
So it's interesting. It's interesting. The dynamics inside the group is very nice.
Now, you've got men and women in there, right?
Both.
Is it still a little bit more more women in it?
More women, yes. More women taking care of spouses. Most of them, the guys are taking care of the wives. And some of them moms,
Okay.
others a dad, but
Probably right now it's more spouses?
more spouses.
Okay. I had another question, but it'll come back to me. So people don't have to come every week. They can
Nope.
just drop in when it works for them if
They
they've
can
got
come
plans.
anytime.
But I'm
if you
guessing
want.
for now they're probably going to try to come almost every week as much
Well,
as they
they showed me last Friday they want to be there.
can. Right. Well, that's really amazing. And I know you sent me a picture, and they were all wearing masks, but
All
all
masked.
smiling. You can see the smiling eyes above the mask. You don't have to see
Yes.
a mouth to do that.
And it's funny because they were asking, are you laughing or are you crying? Now we don't know.
So, do you have any stories you can share without naming any names? Anything that, I know of one, and I'll mention her name because she's done a video for us, June. June doesn't have anybody she's caring for anymore, but
Not
she
now.
continues to come.
Not now. I thought that June should stay with us because all the experience she brought to the group is helping others. And it worked also as a grief group for her. So in the meantime, she was telling people, no, if you do this, try this, I did this. She helped a lot of people. So I don't want to lose her, and she feels comfortable being the teacher. She feels she's a sweet lady.
She's been one of the people who's been with it the whole
From
time.
the
You've done
beginning.
it for a couple
From
of
the
years,
beginning
so.
for 2 years. Yes.
So you've seen people, I'm sure, offering, besides comfort, developing friendships out of there. Do you know, are
yeah.
people doing things
They're going
outside?
together, yes.
they? Okay.
I have a group of 4 that they get together after the group, when we were in the office, of course, and they got dinner together.
Oh, wow.
They
Very
go.
nice.
So every Friday they have something to do.
And so for a lot of them, this time getting out on Friday is a respite for them because it gets them out of the house. Even if it's for an hour and a half, a little bit of time it takes to get there. It's really valuable to them for their time.
Yes, we can offer respite for the person at home or bring the person to a place that we can figure out when we talk what the place is. Or they can go home and stay with the loved one at home while you are in the group. So the respite is only for the support group.
Right. So it's not going to come Friday morning when you're not, it's just going to be in the couple of hours somebody's gone to get there and back. And
It's
all
from the hours during the
that. Right.
support group.
You don't have time to go out and get your grocery shopping or go to the mall or out to
Well,
dinner on
maybe
that.
you can.
But it's not an all-day thing. So especially in the early days of the pandemic, especially when we were really in this serious stay-home order, families often couldn't see their older family members.
No.
And keeping in mind that while a lot of us were using Zoom technology or other kinds of video conferencing, sometimes older adults aren't as adept with that. They're not as comfortable with that kind of technology.
I would say 90% of the people in the group say no to the meetings over the computer or phones.
Right.
So when I mentioned the word Zoom, they say, what? So when I explained, they say, no, I have too many problems to think in something else. So I didn't do it because they didn't want to do it. We tried to do a Zoom meeting one time a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, a week ago, and nobody went.
Yeah.
So I stay quiet and say, okay, if they need me, they know how to find me. And I know that because from Mercy, the people call me and say, can I send you someone? So the word is spreading all over. From the geriatrics office, they're sending me people too.
Good.
Yes.
You'll need an assistant soon. Hopefully not if we can get back to in-person things at some point.
Hopefully.
I imagine you're getting a little bit tired of all the phone calls. But
No, I'm not.
let's talk about communication, though, because that's really what that is. So communication is important for everybody. What tips about what kind of things can caregivers remember, whether they're new or whether they've been caregiving? Even if they've been caregiving for a long time, this whole stay-home thing still changes because they haven't had that respite to get out on a Friday. Now they might they've been worried about grocery shopping. Sometimes they might be afraid to ask for help, or they're not able to see their family member if they or their loved one has health issues. So how can they do things with communication?
The The main thing was here when they had to bring the loved one to a nursing home because they didn't give the care they needed. So doctors decided go to a nursing home for rehab or whatever, and then it came the problem that I have to see my mother through a window.
Right.
Or my dad is behind the door and I cannot talk to him, he can't hear me. And that was depressing. That was depressing. So I invented a lot of things. Pictures, drawings, bring the kids to the window and say hi or do something or dance or sing. And the faces on the other side, they told me were a change. So they needed that. In the home, they did whatever they can imagine. To do groceries, example, they couldn't leave them alone. But when they went, the neighbor was staying. I'm telling you different cases. The neighbor stayed, and so my caregiver went to the store with a mask, with the gloves, and all the clothes when she was coming back in the living room, shoes, mask, everything, and start getting dressed after the shower. So every time.
So almost like what healthcare workers were
Yes.
especially doing.
And I encourage that because you never know what you're bringing in, and your loved one is more than 60 and older.
Right. Right.
In that cases, we're almost 80 and 90s, and he said, don't bring anything in, don't. So alcohol was working all the time, spraying alcohol. So I have to teach how to do things also because it's new.
Right. We weren't used to wiping everything down and realizing that you have to wipe things down and let it sit for a little bit. You
Yes.
can't just wipe it real quickly. It
Yeah,
needs to
for
sit
me
there.
was a learning lesson too because I had to go through the internet, listen to my coworkers, listen to CDC, everything I was learning all the time. I spent hours in the computer finding information because I have to pass it by.
Right.
It was interesting.
I would imagine. And it's hard for a lot of older adults to ask for help as well. So if you've got caregivers who are older, they're reluctant sometimes to ask
Always.
for help.
Always.
And so now you've got on top of that a situation where it's not always feasible to ask for help because you're not supposed to be bringing people in. But although I've heard stories, and not necessarily caregivers, but I know we've done this for our in-laws. Sometimes I'm going to the store. Do you need anything? Let me get something and come and drop it off at your back porch or whatever. I think, and maybe you've seen this too, because I always have to find the positives in things, that I think that in a lot of ways we're caring for some of our neighbors or our friends differently and hopefully better. And that's what I hope we remember out of it, is to remember the value of connections, human connections and family. And
I notice most of them have a good relationship right now with neighbors than they had ever before. Because the neighbors, knowing that there is an old person inside that house, they knock the door and ask, I'm going to the pharmacy, do you need your medication? I'm going to the grocery store, do you need anything? And they leave it by the door.
so that's a true blessing out of all
It
of this.
is. We all learn how nice our neighbors are. We all learn that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best things to come out of it, is that I hope everybody remembers, is that connection, and that, asking for help or offering help are really gifts, and people are usually willing to help. It's very
Yeah.
unusual that they won't.
And the good thing is that they never ask. They came to ask. So yes, it's difficult. It's in every case, you don't want to ask for help because you are losing your liberty,
Right,
your freedom. You are losing it, and you don't want to.
right.
So they don't ask. The word I need is not common.
Right. And then, of course, on top of this, where we can't go out and do all the things we're used to doing, people already feel, and we're not getting into the politics about that, but people already feel that, so it's certainly understandable that they've got those other issues.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, what about some of your people who are caring for people with dementia? That's got to be a whole other level
It's
of
another
concern
story.
there.
That's another story, because one thing is to have a health issue, and another thing is to have 24/7 a person with dementia. And in that case, I can tell you, my mom is one of those, and my father, who is perfectly okay, his mind is working very well. I had to call him every 2-3 hours the first month because he was lost in his house. He didn't know how to follow her. He didn't know how to treat her. He didn't know. And I learned with him what I have to do with the caregivers here. And I'm talking about calling him because my father and my mother are not here. They are on the other side of the world, being stay home also.
Right.
And I had to help them over the phone. And I found myself finding somebody over the phone in South America bringing the groceries to my parents. And I did it. So if
There's
I
not
could
an
do
area
that.
agency on aging in South America necessarily. That's a United States thing that a lot of people don't know about, but we kind of take for granted in a way.
And I found myself finding a doctor, a neurologist for my mom to change medication that she was willing to go to the house. And I found it. Everything over the phone. So I learned a lot. Everybody learned a lot.
Well, we're only down to a few more minutes, so before we're going, I want to just point out some other resources for people. So I always like to refer people to our website, because that's how, if you don't know how to get a hold of Virginia, that's how you can do that. So you can just do a quick search on whatever search engine, Google or whatever, or seniorresourceswmi.org. We have a caregiving page right there under our programs, and there's links to the publications that we have that we've talked about before, including the caregiver link, which you're responsible for now, that comes out every month and gets mailed, but it's also listed on the website. We have Active Daily Living, which has free resources. It's a website that you can connect right to, and it's got great helpful hints on all kinds of things. We've got information there on advanced directives and links to this TV show, so you can tell all your friends to watch it and learn more. You can also on the website go to the contact page, send in questions. An options counselor would get a hold of you. We've got all of our other publications there full of information, Senior Perspectives, our 60 Seconds newsletter, and again, the caregiver link. And then Care Connections program that we have that is a program internal to Senior Resources for people who can privately pay. But the main thing I always want to say is go to that caregiving page. You can find Virginia's contact information there. You can always call our options counselors because they know exactly how to get there. If you call and say, I have questions about caregiving, they're going to transfer you right away to Virginia for that. So, and I always want to remind you, if you don't have access to a computer, you can always call our options counselors Monday through Friday at 733-3585. Or remember, you can always call 211 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're there for you. They know us well. They used to be part of our agency, and certainly they can also refer to you. So 733-3585 for our options counselors, or call 211 any time of the day or night to get that. Don't be afraid to ask for help with caregiving. That's probably our biggest thing. So I was going to ask you for closing words, but that's what I would say. Really. So anything else, though? We've got about 30 seconds left.
211 has my phone number, so
They'll send
if
it
you ask
directly to
there,
you.
they send it to me.
If you call 211 and tell them you're in Muskegon, Oceana, or Ottawa counties, and you say caregiving, they know directly how to get a hold of Virginia.
And don't wait to be in a caregiver support group. You
don't wait
know
for a crisis, right?
No, you don't know what you're missing. Fun.
Right.
It's fun.
Well, I really appreciate you being with us again. I think this was super important information to share with people. Remember that you can get a hold of her there. It's been really great to be back in front of you, in front of the camera, doing this show. Stay safe and healthy, and remember to always wash your hands. Thanks for joining us today.